And right now, I'm joined by former Defense Secretary and former CIA Director Leon Panetta. It's always good to see you, sir. I want to play, just as a reminder, exactly what Secretary Hegseth himself said about this strike on Fox News the day after it happened.
I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented. And that was Tren de Aragua, a narco-terrorist organization designated by the United States, trying to poison our country with illicit drugs. I can't disclose precisely how this went down. I can tell you it was precision. It was very well understood exactly what assets would be used in order to achieve the effect.
All right, folks. I need you to stop everything you're doing right now, because what I'm about to tell you is absolutely stunning. We are watching the Defense Secretary of the United States completely fall apart in real time. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this might be the worst week any Defense Secretary has ever had in the history of this country. The craziest part of all this is that President Trump is standing by him anyway, even as Republicans on Capitol Hill are starting to turn against him too. Pete Hegseth, the former Fox News Weekend host who somehow became the leader of our entire military, just got absolutely demolished by a Pentagon Inspector General report. We're talking about a damning investigation that found he put American troops at risk by sharing classified bombing plans on a random messaging app. But wait, it gets so much worse than that. At the exact same time, this report dropped. Hegseth is also facing bipartisan congressional investigations into whether he ordered the killing of survivors from a boat strike in the Caribbean. We're talking about 2 men clinging to wreckage after the first attack and then a second missile coming in to finish them off. Legal experts are saying this could be a war crime, and both Republican and Democratic committee chairs in Congress are now demanding answers about what exactly happened. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we build Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Who are basically following his orders.
So, Mr. Secretary, when you say that people have to be held accountable, what does accountability look like?
Accountability is a court-martial for somebody in the military if they broke the military code of justice in the implementation of these orders. And for the Secretary of Defense, very frankly, it has to be disciplinary action from the President of the United States. The President said he was told that the Secretary had nothing to do with it. Well, that's not turning out to be the case. And I think the President, if he wants to have credit...
Come on. Think about this for a second. The guy running our military is being investigated for potential war crimes. At the same time, he's been found to have violated Pentagon regulations on classified information. And he's also been firing generals and admirals left and right. At least 24 senior military leaders purged in 9 months with little to no explanation. Former Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, President Trump's own guy from the first term, joined with 4 other former defense secretaries to call these purges reckless. They sent a letter to Congress begging for hearings on the national security implications. Nobody listened. This is the chaos happening at the Pentagon right now. And I have to be honest with you. When I first started researching this story, I couldn't believe how many different scandals are swirling around one single cabinet official. The classified signal chat leak from March, the boat strike cover-up from September, the unprecedented military purges that have been going on all year, the Inspector General report that just dropped proving he violated Pentagon policy. It's all happening at once, and it's all pointing to the same conclusion. Pete Hegseth is in way over his head, and the cracks are starting to show in a very big way. Now here's what makes this even more unbelievable. The Inspector General report found that the information Hegseth shared on Signal was marked secret by U.S. Central Command. The report says if this information had been intercepted by our enemies, it could have endangered American pilots who were literally about to take off on a bombing mission against the Houthis in Yemen. We're talking about messages like, and I'm not making this up, Hegseth typing out this is when the first bombs will definitely drop, with the exact time listed right there in the chat. He sent that to a group chat that accidentally included a magazine editor. But get this, he also sent the same information to a separate chat that included his wife and his brother, neither of whom work at the Pentagon, neither of whom have any business seeing classified military operational plans. When the Inspector General tried to investigate, Hegseth refused to sit for an interview. He only provided a written statement, and he barely handed over any of his signal messages, forcing investigators to rely mostly on screenshots that the magazine published. Are you kidding me? The Defense Secretary of the United States is stonewalling an investigation into whether he leaked classified bombing plans, and everyone is just supposed to act like this is normal? The White House is calling this a total exoneration. Hegseth himself posted on social media saying no classified information, total exoneration, case closed, Houthis bombed into submission, but that's not what the report says at all. The report says the information was classified when he shared it. The report says he violated Pentagon regulations. The report says he endangered American service members. How is that an exoneration exactly? And while all of this is happening, Hegseth is simultaneously trying to dodge responsibility for the boat strike controversy. You've got congressional Republicans now demanding classified briefings about what happened on September 2nd when that Venezuelan boat was hit. 2 people survived the first strike. They were clinging to the burning wreckage, and then a second strike came in and killed them. The Washington Post reported that Hegseth gave a verbal order to kill everybody. He's denying it, but the White House has confirmed that he authorized the admiral in charge to conduct those strikes. And now the admiral is being blamed while Hegseth tries to distance himself from the whole thing. Military officials inside the Pentagon are furious about this. One official told reporters that the White House statement about the strikes was throwing the service members under the bus. Another said some of Hegseth's top civilian staff appeared deeply alarmed about what's coming out. This is a full-blown crisis at the Department of Defense, and President Trump is just pretending everything is fine. Okay, so let's really break down what happened here because the details are absolutely insane. Let's start with the signal chat disaster, since that's what the Inspector General report just exposed in full detail. Back in March of this year, the Trump administration was preparing to launch a massive bombing campaign against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. These are the Iranian-backed militants who've been attacking shipping in the Red Sea and causing major problems for international commerce. The operation was codenamed Rough Rider, and it was a big deal. F-18 fighter jets, drones, Tomahawk missiles, the whole works. And in the hours leading up to this attack, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was sending messages on Signal. Now Signal is an encrypted messaging app that anyone can download on their phone. It's designed for privacy, but it's not a secure government system. The Pentagon has what are called SIC, if switch, stands for Sensitive Compartmented Information Facilities, and these are specially secure rooms and communication systems for handling classified information. Hegseth has access to these at work and at home. He's supposed to use them when discussing sensitive military operations, but instead he was typing away on Signal from his personal phone like he was texting his buddies about weekend plans. The Atlantic magazine broke this story originally because, and this is absolutely wild, the National Security Advisor at the time accidentally added the magazine's editor-in-chief to the Signal group chat. So there's a group chat with the Vice President, the Defense Secretary, the Secretary of State, and a bunch of other top national security officials, and someone just added a journalist by mistake. That journalist was Jeffrey Goldberg, and he published what he saw in the chat. But here's what we now know from the Inspector General report that we didn't know before. The information Hegseth shared wasn't just sensitive, it was classified as secret by U.S. Central Command before he ever hit send. The report found that these messages included the exact timing of when F-18 warplanes would launch, when drones would arrive over targets, and when the bombs would actually drop. Hegseth typed out messages saying this is when the first bombs will definitely drop, with the military time 14:15. That's 2:15 p.m. He was sending this in the hours and minutes before the actual mission launched. The Inspector General concluded that if a foreign adversary had intercepted this information, it would have endangered both American service members and the mission itself. Think about what that means for a second. American pilots were about to fly into hostile airspace, and the Defense Secretary was essentially live tweeting the battle plan on an unsecured app. The Houthis have already shot down 2 American drones. What if they'd gotten their hands on these messages? What if they knew exactly when and where our planes would be? And it gets worse than that. The Inspector General found that Hegseth wasn't just sharing this information with the big group chat that included other cabinet members. He created a separate Signal chat with 13 people, including his wife Jennifer, his brother Phil, who works at the Department of Homeland Security, and his personal lawyer. None of these people are authorized to receive classified military operational information. His wife doesn't work at the Pentagon. She has no security clearance for this kind of material, but he sent her the exact same bombing details anyway. When investigators asked Hegseth about all of this, he refused to sit for an interview. He only provided a written statement claiming he had the authority to declassify information on the spot. The Inspector General noted that while yes, as Defense Secretary, he technically has declassification authority, there's no documentation that he ever actually declassified anything before sharing it. You can't just mentally declassify something and then tell everyone about it. There's supposed to be a process. There's supposed to be paperwork. There's supposed to be a record. None of that exists here. The report also revealed that investigators are aware of several other signal chats Hegseth used for official business, suggesting this wasn't a one-time mistake, but rather a pattern of behavior. Senator Mark Warner, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, said this reflects a broader pattern of recklessness and poor judgment from a secretary who has repeatedly shown he is in over his head. Representative Adam Smith called it a damning review and said Hegseth's behavior would be a fireable offense for anyone else in the Department of Defense. Now let's talk about the boat strikes, because this is where things get even darker. Since September, the Trump administration has been conducting military strikes against small boats in the Caribbean that they claim are carrying drugs from Venezuela. As of mid-November, at least 83 people have been killed in over 20 strikes on more than 24 vessels. But the very first strike on September 2nd is now the subject of bipartisan congressional investigations because of what allegedly happened after the initial attack. According to the Washington Post, Hegseth gave a verbal order to kill everybody before that first strike was launched. The attack was carried out by SEAL Team 6, the elite special operations unit that took out Osama bin Laden. The first strike hit the boat and killed 9 people, but 2 men survived. They were clinging to the wreckage of the burning vessel. And then, according to multiple sources, a second strike was ordered specifically to kill those survivors. The White House has confirmed that a second strike happened and that Hegseth authorized the admiral in charge, Admiral Frank Bradley, who heads Special Operations Command, to conduct these strikes. But there's confusion about who actually gave the order to hit the survivors. Hegseth says he didn't order it and didn't even see the survivors because of what he calls the fog of war. The White House says Bradley made the decision, but the Washington Post reporting says Bradley was complying with Hegseth's standing order that no one be left alive. Legal experts are saying this could be a war crime. Under the Geneva Conventions, you're not allowed to kill wounded or helpless combatants who are surrendering or out of the fight. A group of former military lawyers called the JAGS Working Group said the reported order was patently illegal and that service members have a duty to disobey it. Anyone who complied should face prosecution for war crimes, they said. Think about the position this puts our military in. You've got a defense secretary allegedly ordering kills on survivors, then trying to shift responsibility to the admiral who carried it out. Pentagon officials are telling reporters they feel like they're being thrown under the bus. One official said the White House statement about the strikes was making everyone nervous because it seemed designed to let Hegseth off the hook while leaving Bradley exposed to potential legal consequences. And this all connects to Hegseth's broader campaign to purge the military of anyone who might push back on these kinds of orders. Since President Trump's second term began, Hegseth has fired or sidelined at least 24 generals and admirals. This is without precedent in recent decades. The New York Times talked to 20 current and former military officials who said these purges have created an atmosphere of anxiety and mistrust that has forced senior officers to take sides. Many officers now feel like they have to choose between their professional judgment and their careers, and that's a dangerous place for any military to be. Among those fired, General Charles Brown, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Lisa Franchetti, the first woman to lead the Navy, General David Alvin, the Air Force Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Jennifer Short, the first female senior military assistant to the Secretary, General Timothy Hall, who led both Cyber Command and the National Security Agency, all of the Judge Advocates General, the top military lawyers for each service branch, and dozens more across every branch of the armed forces. Senator Alyssa Slotkin called it a purge and compared it to how authoritarian governments operate. The places where we've seen this kind of thing are countries like China, she said. I used to work on Iraq. They did the same thing. General Stanley McChrystal, the retired commander who once led U.S. Special Operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, warned that the military's tradition of staying apolitical depends on a mutual understanding. The military avoids politics while civilian leaders protect those in uniform from political interference. Recent months have strained that balance at great risk, he said. Representative Seth Moulton, a former Marine officer who served in Iraq, called Hegseth's approach crude and overtly political. That's a recipe not just for a politicized military, but an authoritarian military, he said. That's the way militaries work in Russia and China and North Korea. And Hegseth isn't even pretending this is about anything other than loyalty. In a speech at Quantico in September, he openly attacked several recently retired four-star generals by name in front of the assembled military brass. The new compass heading is clear, he said. Out with the Chiarellis, the McKenzies, and the Millies. He was talking about General Peter Chiarelli, General Kenneth McKenzie, and General Mark Milley, all respected combat veterans who served the country for decades. Many officers in the audience that day had served under these generals and considered them mentors and role models. The message was unmistakable. Loyalty to Trump is all that matters now. So where does all this leave us? Well, Pete Hegseth is in a lot of trouble. And the question now is whether President Trump will finally cut him loose or keep standing by him no matter what happens. The White House keeps saying the president stands by Hegseth. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt called the Inspector General report a total exoneration, even though it found he violated Pentagon regulations and endangered troops. President Trump told reporters on Air Force One that Hegseth assured him he didn't order the deaths of those two men on the boat and that he believes him 100%. But here's the thing. Trump's votes of confidence don't always last very long. He backed Attorney General Jeff Sessions in his first term before firing him. He backed Secretary of State Rex Tillerson before firing him. He initially supported Matt Gaetz for Attorney General this term before that nomination collapsed under the weight of scandal. When you become more trouble than you're worth, Trump tends to move on pretty quickly, and Hegseth is definitely causing trouble right now. Republicans on Capitol Hill, who you'd expect to circle the wagons, are asking pointed questions instead. Senator Roger Wicker, the Republican chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee, demanded a classified briefing on the boat strikes and has pledged vigorous oversight. Representative Don Bacon, a retired Air Force general who served 30 years on active duty, said he doesn't think Hegseth was up to the task when asked about his leadership at the Pentagon. Even the Pentagon's own lawyers have been raising alarms about what's happening. Multiple current and former uniformed lawyers told CNN that the boat strikes do not appear lawful under either domestic or international law. Lawyers in the Pentagon's Office of General Counsel have expressed concerns about the legality of the whole campaign against these vessels. The commander of Southern Command, Admiral Alvin Halsey, offered to resign early after clashing with Hegseth over legal questions about the strikes. He's leaving his post in December after just 1 year, when it's normally a 3-year assignment. That's how bad things have gotten internally. And get this, the United Kingdom has stopped sharing intelligence with the U.S. about suspected drug vessels in the Caribbean because they don't want to be complicit in attacks they consider illegal. One of our closest allies has basically said they think we're committing crimes and they want no part of it. The political implications here are serious for the administration. President Trump's approval ratings have been falling, and Republicans are looking nervously toward the 2026 midterm elections. Having your defense secretary accused of war crimes and caught leaking classified information is not exactly helpful for the party's messaging. Democrats are already using this to hammer the administration on national security, which is supposed to be a Republican strength. Senator Mark Kelly, the former Navy pilot and astronaut who's now a Democrat from Arizona, said Pete Hegseth should have been fired after the signal scandal came to light. He and Hegseth have been feuding ever since the Pentagon threatened to recall Kelly to active duty and court-martial him over a video where he reminded service members they don't have to follow illegal orders. Yeah, Hegseth's Pentagon threatened to court-martial a sitting United States senator for reminding troops about their legal rights. That's where we are right now. The Inspector General report is being released publicly on Thursday, so we'll get more details soon about what exactly happened. Congressional hearings are coming. Admiral Bradley is scheduled to give classified briefings to both armed services committees about the boat strikes. More information is going to come out, and every new revelation seems to make things worse for Hegseth. But the scariest part of all this is what it means for our military going forward. You've got a defense secretary who appears to have recklessly handled classified information, who may have ordered actions that constitute war crimes, who has systematically purged experienced military leaders based on politics rather than competence, and who has created an atmosphere where officers are afraid to push back on questionable orders. 5 former defense secretaries, including Trump's own Jim Mattis, wrote a letter calling these purges reckless and asking for congressional hearings on the national security implications. Congress has done nothing in response. The Pentagon Inspector General tried to investigate the signal leak, and Hegseth stonewalled them at every turn. There's no accountability anywhere in this system right now. This is what happens when you dismantle oversight from the very beginning. Remember, on his very first weekend back in office, President Trump fired 17 inspectors general in the middle of the night. The Pentagon Inspector General Robert Storch was among those purged. The current acting Inspector General Stephen Stebbins was installed by Trump's team, and even this hand-picked watchdog found that Hegseth violated regulations and endangered troops. Imagine what a truly independent investigation might have uncovered if they'd had full cooperation and access to all the evidence. We're watching accountability collapse in real time, folks. The guy running our military is facing potential war crimes investigations and classified information scandals, and the response from the White House is total exoneration. Generals are being fired for unknown reasons, while political loyalists are protected no matter what they do. Our allies are cutting us off because they think we're breaking international law. This is not normal. This is not how the most powerful military in the world is supposed to function. And Pete Hegseth, the former Fox News Weekend host, who never should have been confirmed in the first place, is right at the center of all of it. I'll be watching closely as more information comes out, and you can bet I'll be covering every development, because this story is far from over. If anything, it feels like we're just getting started. That's it for this video. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about this absolute disaster at the Pentagon. Do you think Hegseth survives this, or is he finally on his way out? Subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss what happens next, and I'll see you in the next one.